Hey, Forrest. We're so happy to have you with us today. For those of you who don't know, Forrest is our new U.S. Center's project director. He is passionate about advocacy for the earth and for all forms of sentient life. He has 2 decades of Buddhist practice under his belt and has been vegan for 17 years. His professional career has included sales jobs, personal training, and most recently, an interpretive park ranger for the National Park Service, which is pretty awesome. We are so happy that you are joining us this morning, Forrest, and we're happy to have you here at Dharma Voices for Animals and can't wait for our community to get to know you better.
Thank you so much, Katie.
Yeah. I guess I just want to start by asking, I know you've had experience with a lot of different forms of Buddhism. You've practiced a lot of different types of Buddhism. Could you tell us a little bit about that and how you came to Buddhism also?
Yeah, definitely. Let's see. Yeah, so I first found Buddhism in 2005, and one of my favorite books on Buddhism is from Bhikkhu Bodhi. It's the Noble Eightfold Path, and sometimes some of the beginning teachings of the Buddha are considered basic. If you read a book from Bhikkhu Bodhi on the Noble Eightfold Path, you realize how deep and how rich the Noble Eightfold Path is, and to actually practice that is a lot to it, and it's not something simple you can skip over. So anyway, but the beginning of the book from Bhikkhu Bodhi, it describes my experience perfectly. It says most of us who find the need for a spiritual path find it not from lights and ecstasy, but from truly deep suffering. And I've had mental health struggles my entire life. uh, I I'm on the autism spectrum. I found that out as an adult. I have had all types of depression and anxiety through the years, especially before I understood my mental health needs. And but I found Buddhism I was in a very very dark place and very depressed and suicidal and hopeless. And a friend of mine gave me a book from the Dalai Lama, and I was like, oh my God, this is so beautiful. This is um, a really simple solution on how to be happy. And so I first found Buddhism through the Dalai Lama, which I think is about how a lot of Westerners find Buddhism, because the Dalai Lama is so popular and Tibetan Buddhism is popular. I was in Los Angeles at the time, and in Hollywood, Tibetan Buddhism is very popular. And so anything I do to excess. That's part of my personality. And I really got into it. I got a Rinpoche as a teacher and was really studying books and getting deeper and deeper into that. And I started to find it was a little rigid and a little structured, too maybe felt a little too structured in some ways. And someone mentioned, oh, there's other schools of Buddhism. You should look into other schools as well. So then I naturally kind of fell into the Theravadan school, because that's considered the school of the elders. So Vajrayana to Theravadan, and I was into Vipassana meditation and was practicing breathing meditation. I was living in Marin County by that point, and the Spirit Rock was in the area, so I started going to Spirit Rock and really enjoying Spirit Rock. Um, but then I found that some of the teachings were really influenced by Western ideology around therapy. And I was like, okay, I want a more pure form. So then I found Zen Buddhism, and I got into Mahayana Buddhism, and I was going to Green Gulch, also in the Marin County area. Um, but through every experience I had, I showed up to all of these places expecting to be surrounded by vegans. Honestly, I thought showing up to these Buddhist centers would be a great support as a vegan. And what I found was it was not. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
I showed up to particularly the Tibetan Buddhism. I got into like heated debates with the sentience of chickens at a potluck with an elder member of the Tibetan Buddhist group, and he was arguing with me about that. And he was considered one of the elders of the group and was arguing with me about chickens. And I was like, yeah, it was so upsetting, because when you love all animals equally, and then you go to a spiritual gathering, you expect not to be so activated and ending up in an argument with someone. So I left the Tibetan group and went to the Spirit Rock and ended up in a kind of a heated discussion. I don't want to say heated, but just a bit of a. I don't have to probably explain it too much. Y'all get it. a debate with the cook at Spirit Rock over why they're cooking animals after we just did a meditation practice. So, and then the
Mhm.
same thing at the Zen Center. And Zen, they're very, I like Zen because the meditation is so simple. It's almost the complete opposite of Tibetan Buddhism with the visualizations and the counting numbers. Zen is beautiful. You just sit and you don't think. That's the goal, is to stop thinking. And I was like, this is what I need, you know? But once again, they had their meeting, the gathering afterwards, and they're uh, mostly vegan, but serving vegetarian options. And I ended up getting into another debate around chickens and dairy cows. I just felt like I'm on my own, you know? So I found Thich Nhat Hanh is a beautiful teacher. If anyone hasn't listened to Thai, is what they call Thich Nhat Hanh. He has a tradition, the Plum Village tradition. And part of my daily practice now is I read the 5 mindfulness trainings from Plum Village. And Thich Nhat Hanh is very clear. He's even been asked multiple times on YouTube. You can find him saying why all people should be vegan. The love that comes from your heart when you find the ability to love all animals equally. He's very clear about it. So I'm like, he's my teacher. So then I was like, oh, I need to find a Plum Village meditation group. And I found a Plum Village meditation group. And oh my God. And the same thing happened where we read the mindfulness trainings, and I shared about how beautiful the precept of not killing is. And an elder member corrected me in front of the entire group, saying the Buddhist teachings have been given an analogy of the finger pointing at the moon, and don't mistake the finger for the moon. And we all do the best we can. And animals, da, da, da. This whole thing, animals have karma. And it's amazing how Buddhists can use Buddhism to really kind of rationalize some of these thoughts. So at that point, I'm like, I am on my own. I'm going to go into my own Buddhist practice, because going to Buddhist sanghas has given me so much anxiety and stress. In Zen Buddhism, Bodhidharma went to a cave and stared at a wall for 7 years and found perfect freedom. And I'm like, okay, I'm in my cave dwelling Buddhist stage. I'm going to go get away from these people because it's just too much. And around that same time, when I got into that, I was going to there's a vegan meditation group on Monday nights. They meet every Monday. Dave Simon, I don't know if anyone's heard of him. He wrote a book called Meatonomics. He's a well-known animal rights attorney, and they have a weekly meeting. And that's where someone said, "Oh, you should check out DVA." And I was like, "What's DVA?" And I looked it up and found DVA. And I was like 15 years vegan at the time. Buddhist for longer than that. And I was like, how have I never heard of this group? So I started
Mm.
checking out DVA and found the book, Buddha. I just went blank. I have it incorporated into one of my talks, Buddha and Buddhism and animals. What's the book we have on our, I can't believe I just went blank.
The animals and the Buddha?
Yes. Yes. So anyway, so that's a little bit of my history with Buddhism. And so I kind of went in and understand each of the different schools. And at the end of it, I was like, okay, what did the Buddha say? Right? Because we have all of these interpreters, which is interesting because I did that job as an interpreter. You take a piece of information and you give it your own interpretation. And particularly Mahayana and Vajrayana. I mean, I've read in depth about how these different schools evolved. And even 100 years after the Buddha passed away, there was arguments over what he said and what he meant. So the Dhammapada is considered to be the truest form of what the Buddha said. And so part of my practice now is I read the precepts. I do a metta meditation, a vipassana meditation each day, and then I listen. My wife and I do this together, and we listen to the Dhammapada on Audible as a daily practice of what did the Buddha say, because it is so deep and so rich, and it's something that many people, I think, overlook, the power of the simplicity of what the Buddha said. You know, all beings love life, all beings fear death, therefore one should not kill nor cause to kill. I'm not sure how that could be interpreted in any other way than what it actually says. If you look at what the Buddha did, he walked the earth for 45 years saying the same things again and again. Do not kill. If you want to be a lay practitioner, the 5 precepts are the minimum moral requirement. If you want to be a monk, there's 14 or more minimum moral requirements. So in a world where animal suffering is incredibly tragic, we have such simple and powerful tools from the Buddha that make it so clear and so easy. We have so many amazing examples of plant-based athletes and activists and Buddhists, and it's just so simple and so powerful that I'm happy that I have found it. I'm happy that you guys have found it. I gather that you're here because you found it too. So that's a little bit of my history with Buddhism. So
Yeah, thank you for that. And I just, as you said, it's so relatable. I think it's part of the reason why we're all here and why
yes,
we've all found Dharma Voices for Animals is because there's this really big gap between compassion for animals and Buddhism. And I think at least 12 of us here probably it makes complete sense that the two go hand in hand, but it's unfortunately just not what we're seeing out there at the centers. And before I dive into our work with the centers, Forrest, I want to know how you became vegan. How did you come to veganism? What is your relationship with animals and your background in
yeah,
that?
that's a great question. Thank you. Oh my guys, it's funny. So I grew up in Texas. I grew up with the granddad who was famous for barbecue and ribs, and I loved beef jerky. I mean, I did not grow up vegetarian. I grew up in the Texas culture. I grew up hunting, duck hunting and fishing, and actually took the life of animals with my own hands as a hunter. Duck hunting particularly and fishing. And it's interesting though because growing up, before I got swept up into that culture, I was terrified of eating burgers because I had farm animals, my plastic farm animals, not farm animals real, but I had my plastic toy cow that I carried with me everywhere. And I would lay in bed at night and I would tuck myself in really tight and I would set up all my farm animals with me. And if any one of them fell over, I would scream until my mom came back in and set it up right, you know? So little signs of being on the spectrum from an early age. um, but I have a very, very deep love for animals that was somehow glossed. I somehow lost that because of the culture I was raised in and the lies I was told. It's interesting. We were staying with a friend recently, and her kids, I bought them some ice cream, and one of the 5-year-old had a complete, it was unbelievable, meltdown over the oat milk ice cream bar, and she was, "What is this?" I said, "It's oat milk ice cream. It's better for you. It's better for the planet." And I was trying to say better for the animals, and the mom cut me off. It's like, "Oh, honey, we tried this. It's the environmental impact." And I stopped talking because I'm not close enough with them to know if it's okay. But why do we not tell kids early? Why was I not told? Well, I didn't want to eat a burger because I love my cow, but I was told, oh, I don't even know what I was told, but I believed it, and I somehow started eating cows. I remember my mom saying this is normal, da da da. Everyone does it, and getting peer pressure from my cousins, and all of a sudden
Yeah.
I'm eating meat and I'm totally into eating meat. I'm eating, I actually worked at a barbecue house and I could have all the barbecue I wanted. I honestly feel like that's part of my story. Is something I really try to embrace when I do activism because people often think you're vegan, you were born this way, you're different than me. And I'm like, no, listen, I grew up eating meat. I worked in a barbecue house. I hunted and I had this awakening somehow. It's crazy to me that I had the awakening, but I did. Um, the very first thing that happened was I watched Babe in 1996, I think 1997, and I didn't eat mammals for like 2 years. I still ate fish. I ate a lot of turkey and a lot of chicken, but that was my first little like, I could see mammals differently. That was my first breaking through of my speciesism, seeing different species at different levels. And then it was 2007, and I was attending Agape. I don't know if anyone has heard of Reverend Michael Bernard Beckwith. He is a very powerful spiritual teacher, and he has a center in Los Angeles called Agape. And Agape stands for unconditional love. And he's kind of like science of the mind, new age. He pulls from the Buddha, pulls from Gandhi, pulls from Jesus, pulls the best of everybody and brings it into one message of very powerful love. And he would talk about, hey, we're going to go out and eat vegan food together. Let's all go eat vegan food. And he had a group of like 500 people at these places. And if you listen to this guy speak, he is powerful, very, very, very energetic, high enthusiasm for love and life. And he had a sermon once or a talk once where he was talking about you don't want to eat darkness. You want to eat the light. You want to eat the light, and the light is in vegetables and plants. And I was like, that's interesting. And I went home and ate animals more. And then I had a buddy at the same time who was very hardcore vegan, animal liberation front activist type of a guy. And he was telling me about his love for animals. And a couple days later, I was eating a turkey burger and I had a French bulldog named Frankie that I loved. This dog was like my little Buddha. I was eating a turkey burger and I was looking at him, and French bulldogs kind of look like piglets, you know? And I was eating meat and I was looking at his hind legs and I'm like, that looks like meat. And I'm eating meat and I had like chills run through my body. And I went to I'm giving you guys the full story here. I went to a Rainbow Acres, was a very health, like it was the health food store. And my buddy who was vegan said, go there. And there's a lady there you can ask. And I went in and I asked her with all of these feelings and everything. And I went and I said, hey, I'm thinking about switching to vegan. Can you show me what to eat? And she's like, I've been vegan for 50 years. And she was radiant. She was like in her 70s and she was just glowing. One of those ladies that you just see, like, she looked like an alien being. She was just so, like, light was coming off of her. And she said something. And I remember this because I showed up with the intention of going vegan. And she said something to me. And she said, I feel so amazing that my body is not a graveyard for rotting animal carcasses. And she said those words to me, and it gave me these feelings of fear. And I left and went back and kept eating animals. It's crazy that I have to remember these things because I have family that's very stubborn. And even though I showed up there with the intention of switching my diet, what she said to me turned me off so much so that I went back to eating animals, even after all of that. Then another week later, I went back to the meditation group at Agape, and I had just done a workout. I had a can of tuna, and I ate the can of tuna really quickly, which is disgusting. Can't even believe I did that. And I went to the meditation group, and I was sitting there with all of these feelings and these thoughts. And Reverend Michael had said, eat the light, and my dog. And I was sitting in meditation. There's probably 100 people or so there. And I used to go fishing. And I don't know if any of you have ever been fishing, but when you get a fish on your line, the fish fights for its life. And you have this, what people consider fun fight with the fish, you know, as you drag it in. And I was sitting there in meditation, and the tuna that I had just eaten was in my stomach. And my stomach felt like it had hooked the fish, and the fish was fighting in my stomach. I don't get to tell the story that often because I have to tell the whole story, but this was happening to me in real time. My stomach was writhing in pain, and this fish was fighting to get free, and I was crying my eyes out in this meditation. And I went home after that, and I walked in and told my wife, I'm going to be vegan. And she was like, what? I mean, I had just eaten a steak 3 days before that. I had just eaten a can of tuna. No experimentation with letting slowly transitioning. I was like, I am vegan. And she was like, what are you talking about? Plants have feelings. She was as conditioned as I was, you know, and she watched me closely for the first week, and I didn't die. And my wife, she has eating disorder in her history. So she was scared she thought it was going to be restrictive. But after a week of watching me, she 100%, I'm vegan too, you know, and we both got into it at the same time. And she found that healed her eating disorders because it gave her a purpose to be of service to the animals. So that was in 2007, in September of 2007. So in a few months, I'll be celebrating 18 years vegan. I never looked back. I never had a craving. I never had a thought. The smell of burning flesh to me is the same as if someone was cooking a dog. And I watched Earthlings probably 3 months into being vegan. I didn't want to watch it because I'm like, I'm already vegan and I know. But I was wearing wool sweaters and leather boots. But I was only eating at vegan restaurants and very, rigid. Um, but I watched Earthlings because I heard the director say, hey, we're not trying to traumatize you. We're trying to just show you the truth. People risk their lives to get this footage. And if you don't see it, you will never believe it. Even if you're vegan and you think you understand, you don't understand until you see this. So we watched Earthlings. I have never cried like that in my life. I mean, oh my
Yeah.
God, just telling the story in this depth is like, I saw things that I never thought could be possible. And one thing I have as a person on the spectrum is a superpower. With being on the spectrum, I have intense sensitivities, which limit things I can do. I haven't been on an airplane in 20 years, and I'm so happy about that. I have superpowers, and one of my superpowers I've learned is I see animals suffering, and I have an empathy for them that is so deep and so pure. You guys understand completely. I see them suffering. I feel that as though it's happening in my body. And I've always been like that. I saw Earthlings the next day. The landscaping crew was working out there. I went out. I had these awesome leather hiking boots that I had, worn in. They were. I handed them to the guy. You were 11. He said, "Yeah." I'm like, "Here." I gave away all my everything that had animal products in it. Read labels like I had never read labels at that level before, and it was this the most powerful, enlightening, freeing experience. And then I'm so excited about it. I'm telling everybody, and everyone's running from me. So I wish I would have been more mindful at the beginning, because I could have been, but that's just how it goes. When you've had an awakening, you want to share it with others, and I really ran a lot of people off. I think. Anyway, so that I haven't got to tell that story in that depth in a long time. So thank you all for listening. So that's kind of how I got into veganism, and I think this would be a good point. I think we were gonna maybe bring. So I got into street activism, and I was really scared about doing street activism. And we went to an Anonymous for the Voiceless Cube of Truth in San Francisco. And at the time, I was going through mental health struggles, and I was having really bad agoraphobia, which comes with panic disorder. And sometimes you just have agoraphobia, but I had agoraphobia and panic disorder. I didn't go over the Golden Gate Bridge for a couple years, but the activism was in San Francisco, and I went over the bridge into downtown San Francisco. And the type of panic I have is that I'm going to get trapped in buildings. So I was in downtown San Francisco with high rises near me with a mask on, crowded with people. This is so hypersensitive, triggering all of these things for me. But I stood there and I thought about animals in the cages all over the world, and animals suffering in the slaughterhouses. And I felt free. I mean, it was one of the most powerful experiences I had. I became addicted to doing Anonymous for the Voiceless. My wife and I became I'm like, can we do this every day? We became organizers for Anonymous for the Voiceless in Marin County. And every Thursday, we had street activism with 15 activists from the Bay Area, on good days, 6 TVs, other times at least 3 TVs with a 6-person cube. And I would talk with the police officers and became friends with them. And I have this privilege of cops like me, unfortunately, good or bad. Good thing they like me. But anyway, I would became buddies with the cops and did activism with these guys. Anyway, it was really awesome. And that ended when the farmers market closed. But so I really got into doing street activism, which was a really awesome part of my vegan experience as well. And so that was amazing. If anyone hasn't gotten to do that, even if you just went to a cube and stood on the outside and got to watch it, we had amazing conversations with people. And the reason why I bring that up and tying in with, if my only experience with having success talking to people in 17 years is when they're watching the actual footage. When people walk up, and it's cool with Anonymous for the Voiceless because we do the um, Aris, what am I trying to say? What's the name of the questioning? Socratic method of questioning. So you wait for people to stop, and then you ask them questions. Have you seen this before? How does this make you feel? Do you think those animals are experiencing pain? Do you think they're experiencing fear? Is there a difference between that animal and your pet that you're walking with right now? And oh my God, I had people on the spot. I am never taking part in this again. I don't know what happened when they left, but seeing the footage is so powerful. And I've had the most bizarre conversations when people aren't willing to watch the footage, the rationalizations people can come up with. So, um, anyway, I love talking about this stuff, and I'm probably going on a little too long. So I'll go to the, I'll pause there for a
No,
second. So,
no, this is incredible. Thank you for sharing your story. It's so inspiring to hear just the different stages you went through to get to where you are now. I think I can definitely relate, and it's hard looking back on yourself. I heard you say like I wish I was, different at first, and I'm sure we all feel that way. It's such a journey getting to the point with our relationship with animals and veganism, and I think we're always growing and learning how to be better and how to share this message better. And I'm so happy that we have you now at Dharma Voices for Animals to share our message with other Buddhists and other people who care about animals. I guess I don't know if this is a great time to talk about your vision for the program for the U.S. Centers Project and what you've been working on.
Yeah, that's like, sounds good. So yeah, so I actually got the job at DVA. It was crazy. So I was an interpretive park ranger for the last 5 years for the National Park Service, and was working in the Marin County at the Marin Headlands, which is this beautiful spot on the north side of the Golden Gate Bridge at a lighthouse overlooking the Golden Gate Bridge in the Bay Area. And I cleared it with the supervisor, the superintendent, to talk about the United Nations report on climate change, the IPCC climate change report that came out in 2011, and how we all need to switch to a plant-based diet. So I got to tell the story of the lighthouse and the animal atrocities that have happened through whaling and the fur rush, tying that into what we're currently doing in animal agriculture. And here's the solution, everybody. Let's go plant-based. It was hilarious. People came out to the lighthouse thinking they were going to hear about the guy that turned the light on, and I'm telling them to go plant-based. I got to give this talk hundreds of times, and 90% of people would just walk off, and but 10% of people came up to me, which was over the course of a couple of years. A lot of people came up to me and thank you. What can I do? And that was amazing, So, but anyway, I was going to the Dharma Voices for this ties into how I got the job to the Dharma Voices for Animals monthly meditation group. So if anyone hasn't gone, it's amazing. We have Bante who leads it. Other times someone else will lead it, but we'll just do a meditation. We'll talk about struggles or anything good happening with our vegan lifestyle. And so I was attending that and talking about being a park ranger and this stuff. And I was invited to like talk with some of the people running the show behind the scenes, and then met with Arjani, and Arjani was the person doing the job before me. And I basically handed the baton off to me. They were like, you're a great fit for what we need. And Arjani was moving on. So I came in, uh, already having a kind of a polished talk about the environmental impact of animal agriculture. I've been able to modify that to a Buddhist approach now, because I was not talking about Buddhism, obviously, as a park ranger, nor was I able to talk about the ethical implications of this slaughter. So now I've been able to talk about that when I've given a couple talks. For anyone that's interested, both of those talks, I don't like doing self promotion, but both of those talks are on our YouTube channel. You can check those out about the environmental impact of animal agriculture. Um, the one that I gave was not as tied into Buddhism, but I also got to give a talk about animal agriculture and Buddhist ethics that was more focused on animal suffering. So my goal as the project director of U.S. Centers is really to raise awareness for DVA. I want our name to spread, and we're coming up with different ways to do that. The last few years, the goal has been to get into Buddhist centers, raise awareness around the Buddha's teachings, Buddhist ethics, and try to have more plant-based options on the menus. Many centers are vegetarian. Not enough centers have plant-based option. That's one of our primary goals. We have what's called the Climate and Compassion Awards, which is a great program that's an easy way for centers that are already on board to get recognition for the work they're doing from DVA through a series of recognition. With the Climate and Compassion Awards, we have different ways we recognize them: as a gold medal award, a silver medal award, and a bronze, depending on how much plant-based options they're offering. One thought I've had and we've been working on is I've just been calling Buddhist centers and introducing myself and letting them know we offer a free program regarding the environmental impact of animal agriculture in a world where sustainability is such a big conversation and people are concerned over the climate. This is a great way to tie in the reality of what's happening with the teachings of the Buddha and offer a free Zoom talk. So we've been able to do that at the Land of Medicine Buddha. And we're also talking about growing our social media presence. And I think anyone that's here, if you are on social media, which is a slippery slope for a lot of us Buddhists, because we're trying to practice non-self, and you go on to Instagram or whatever, and it's like me, so it's but if we can carry the message of the Buddhist teachings on social media and get DVA's name out there, we really have an opportunity to offer support to vegans who may not even be Buddhist, but could find solace and support in Buddhism. I think a lot of us, I came to Buddhism and then found veganism and then really got into Buddhism. And some people find veganism and then find Buddhism as a way to support their spiritual practice. And I've encouraged activists, because so many activists I know, they're just struggling with mental health, and they're struggling with anger and hostility towards carnists. And the Buddhist teachings of compassion for all beings really helped me. And I practice metta and send love out to, the people who I feel are harming the animals the most. I practice that. So, but yeah, so with DVA though, trying to just raise our awareness, raise our name so that people can know where to go and know how to find support. So my goal for the US centers is to raise awareness in the centers, raise awareness just in the Buddhist community, raise awareness in the vegan community. And we're coming up with some different ideas. We have one last thing I'll share. We have an idea to get a sanctuary called the Zen Hen Sanctuary. They're a chicken rescue, and get them on our speaker series that we're doing right now, and have them talk about what they do, and then possibly get other sanctuaries on so that we can just talk about compassion towards animals. And sanctuaries are a great way for people who are not Buddhist or not vegan or not that even aware of animals to go connect with farm animals. When you go get to pet a cow or a pig, you realize, whoa, this is no different from my dog. I've gone to sanctuaries only as a vegan, but it's really even a more powerful way to connect with those animals. So we have a lot of goals, and anyone that's here that wants to get involved with us and share our stories, if you see us, do a post like, hey, share it to your story, and attend our monthly meditation group, and anything we can offer you. If you're here, let us know, like, what are your ideas? What could you, if you're thinking, hey, this is a great thing, we're all ears. So we really want to just serve the Buddhist community and the vegan community in any way possible. So
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that, Forrest. I think we're really just trying to get people involved, create a space where people feel welcome and can come and join in community with like-minded people. We're trying to reach out to different organizations and build as many collaborations as possible. And if you missed it, I put the link for our Sangha in the chat. It happens the last Sunday of each month. So it'll be Sunday, June 29th. You can join there and then mark every last Sunday of the month in your calendar if you'd like to be with us. And I put Forrest's previous talks in the chat as well. And then I will put two more things in there. One is a link to our new WhatsApp group. It's for people to just kind of have conversations with other like-minded folks, so we can just kind of keep the conversation going kind of after our sanghas, so that we can stay in touch in between. A month is a long time to go without connecting with others. And then one other thing is we're having an in-person and online retreat with Land of Medicine Buddha, July 4th through 6th. So I'll put the link to register and find out more about that in the chat as well. And with that, Forrest, I don't know if you want to say one or two other things, and then maybe like, if you have anything you feel that you missed that you want to add. Otherwise, we can open it up to questions to the folks who've joined us.
yeah, thank you all for coming, and thank you, Katie, for those great questions. And I think I definitely wanted to mention, you did it, the Land of Medicine Buddha, our monthly Sangha. And I think, unless I'm forgetting anything, Andrea, let me know if there was anything else we were talking about. I think we got it covered. So thank you all for listening. I really appreciate everyone showing up and listening to me blabber on about myself. It's sometimes a little awkward, but I think it's good to get to know people and get to know each other and everything. So if anybody has anything they want to share, or questions about DVA, or anything you identified, whatever, please open up. I think we're planning on being on here for an hour. I can hang out more if anyone wants to chat. So yeah, if anyone visiting wants a question or anything, I think Andrea just posted a question.
Yeah, Andrea asks, what is the biggest challenge you face advocating to Buddhists that is different from advocating to the general public? That's a really good question.
That is a good question. That is a good question, Andrea, and you know the answer. But it's good to talk about it. It's interesting because the ability, you know, my ability to have a logical, educated conversation. You know, I watch Earthling Ed. I've read Earthling Ed's 30 Excuses ebook. If you guys haven't read that, we could actually post that probably as a resource also. It's every possible argument you can have against animals. And, you know, there was a great video Earthling Ed said, so there's no logical argument against veganism. Prove me wrong, you know, and I like listening to those things. And like, we know there's no logical argument. There's no dietary argument. But it's incredible. I have found more illogical arguments when I have conversations with carnists. They come up with, well, you know, small animals are killed or you're killing plants. Like, it's okay. They're just grasping for things. But the struggle with Buddhists is that they use these tools to, I don't know, tools. They use stories and say the Buddha begged for meat. The Buddha died eating meat. The Buddhist. So there's things that have been misinterpreted through the years, and I won't go on too long, but well, you know, there's misinterpretation. The Buddha died eating mushrooms. The Buddha died in an area where the language was not even translated into the language of the Dhammapada. So everything is very confusing about what they meant. We understand who people who have studied this and done a deep dive. The Buddha ate some toxic mushrooms and passed away. The mushrooms had a name that resembled pig flesh, so everyone said the Buddha died eating pork, eating pig flesh. It's not accurate. The Buddhist monks thousands of years ago would go and do their alms rounds. They would take what they were given, but the Buddha also said that he hoped once the Dharma was established in an area that the people offering food would not offer meat to the monks. So, but Buddhists will find these things and they will argue about this and come into these different things and even take things out of context. As the guy that I had the, you know, he was saying, don't take the finger pointing at the moon as the teaching, meaning the teaching of not killing should not be taken seriously. That's the kind of stuff. So when you're talking, when I've talked with Buddhists, it can be very frustrating because they almost have this reinforced thing to back up their carnist viewpoints. And the unfortunate thing is that a lot of Buddhist teachers share these ideas, and a lot of spiritual teachers were also raised in a carnist culture, and they've been conditioned to believe certain things. And the simple fact of the matter that we all know, when you eat meat, it becomes an addiction. Your taste buds, your mind is wired to where you have carnist delusions. If anybody hasn't heard of Melanie Joy, she has outstanding information. She's almost too compassionate to meat eaters, I think. I want to be like, no, you know. She has a reductarian viewpoint that is actually offers a lot of peace of peace and serenity sometimes. I have more of an abolitionist, like this is wrong, we should not do it, period, black and white, but that doesn't always give me good mental health either, especially with family, you know. So yeah, but talking with Buddhists can be I don't even need to explain it anymore. You guys all know. So, but yeah, we have our work cut out for us. So,
Yes, we definitely do. Um, yeah, so more questions.
anybody have any questions?
Tenebri put a really good one in the chat that may not necessarily be relevant to our US Centers project, but I don't know if you want to take a stab at it or if Andrea, you want to pop in for this one. There's a question about Takahatsu, the begging bowl. We're meant to kind of take what is given with gratitude. So Buddhist monks are meant to kind of accept whatever they're given. And how do we address this in modern times? And we actually have kind of sort of found a workaround for this in one of our programs abroad.
Yeah, I can take this one. So that's an amazing question. And actually in Thailand, the monks are facing a serious health epidemic because of the animal-based products that they're fed, and the monks are generally more unhealthy than the public, and the issue is so severe that the government has tried to intervene. They're creating programs, trying to get, help to these monks. And so one thing that we do is we hired a PhD in public health. He's also a YouTube sensation, Coach Bank, and he goes in and gives health seminars to the monks. And as you know, when they go around, they can't deny anything. But what we're doing is advocating to the lay people to bring in food as medicine is how we promote it. Food that's going to allow these monks to thrive and continue. And bring the message of the Buddha to the people longer. So although they can't deny the food themselves, we can encourage the public to bring food that's going to nourish them and nourish the word of the Buddha.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, definitely. So a good way that we're kind of working around the issue, trying to solve the problem by educating lay people. So
Yeah, and I
great
think that
question.
that ties in with 2,500 years ago, these things were founded, and I've done research. So 2,500 years ago, the population of the Earth was around 100 million people, right? So if people had an animal, they maybe had a cow in the backyard or chickens or whatever. But even in there's a Buddhist teachings that we take the lives of fishes and deers. Uh, Santi David talks about taking the lives of fishes and deer. So they were hunting and fishing what minimal animals they could find, compared to now where we have 9 billion people almost on the earth, and we slaughter 90 billion land animals and trillions of sea animals. Like, the escalation is incredible, and this is the awareness that we're trying to break through to understand, help people understand that some of these practices, ancient practices, are so not applicable now. The public needs to understand these things, and that's where the challenges become more and more paramount for us to raise awareness. But I look at things like, you guys have heard of Veganuary. Veganuary started in 2011. There was 10,000 people that did it. It's growing and growing. In 2023, 2 million people did Veganuary. Does anybody know how many people did Veganuary in 2024? 24 million. In 1 year, it grew by 20 million people signed up for Veganuary. So that is a
Wow.
sign that things are changing, even though meat eating culture and carnism and carnivore diets or whatever, people are waking up. With 9 billion people, we need much dramatic more numbers. But, I look at those things as hope in a dark world that sometimes is so unbelievably unbearable sometimes to think about the animal suffering. You know what I mean? So,
Absolutely. That's a really good point. And I think it's important to kind of remember that. I think I at least tend to kind of get bogged down and lose sight of the bigger picture. Like, oh my
yeah.
gosh, there's just so many meat eaters out there, but the world is growing and
Yeah.
changing, and we're part of that positive movement. So,
And that's one thing we're working with the U.S. centers. We're trying to raise awareness around the environment first. We have the Climate and Compassion Awards as well for centers that are already on board. But you can get a lot of traction with people when you begin talking about the environmental impact. Many Buddhists are already very much environmentally motivated. They just haven't been able to make the tie between the environmental impact of animal agriculture. People are driving Priuses and shopping with recyclable bags and buying locally raised animal products, thinking that that's making a difference. But any animal product still has the same environmental impact, whether it
mm,
was farmed a massive scale or a local scale. Particularly these grass-fed animals that live for longer periods of time have a much, much, much bigger footprint and much less sustainable than the unfortunate story. So anyway, but when we can lead with this and when we talk about sustainability, people pop in and listen, and that kind of gets our foot in the door. And then we can begin talking about ethics and compassion when people are already interested. I think leading right in with the ethics, a lot of Buddhists already have their armor on and ready to argue about the ethics.
mm.
So that's the kind of fine line we're trying to walk. So was there a question that popped up about the abolitionist approach or something?
Just a comment,
Yeah.
abolitionists, but applying Buddhist idea of effective means to reach as many as people as possible. Um, there is a question from Didi that I think is interesting. So, how do we deal with animal rights activists and other vegans who either resist or are uninterested in introspection or spirituality? Um, they've experienced dysfunction in vegan spaces that would benefit from Buddhism. I think we've all experienced that kind of toxic infighting that can bleed into some vegan spaces for sure. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, Forrest.
Well, that's a great question. I think there's an old saying I've heard: attraction, not promotion. Um, which is a weird thing for me right now since I'm sitting here talking about myself for an hour, but trying to shine your light so bright that people come up to you and say, "Hey, what are you doing? You know, you seem different or whatever, you know." And that's the core of the Buddha's practice of metta, which I love. You know, and right, and one of the Eightfold Path is right intention, and one of the intentions is renunciation, goodwill, and harmlessness. RGH is how I remember the right intention. The three intentions under the right intention is RGH. Goodwill is the practice of meditation and the methodical radiation of love. The Buddha taught love isn't something that can be spontaneously felt. It's something that needs to be nurtured and watered and practiced daily. And for someone like me that has an abolitionist mentality and I get angry and want to like burn things down and blow things up, you know what I mean? Like I like feel that feeling, you know, like let's burn down the slaughterhouses, you know, and practicing metta is a great way. And I do this when I walk. Sometimes I'll just send love out to others when I'm walking down the street. People are walking past me having no idea that my heart is sending out radiant love towards them, you know? And so I feel like being able to offer that to others, even through my eyesight and through my words, when I've been at vegan activist groups, we had a very healthy group in Marin. It only lasted 2 years because of the pandemic, but we would always get together before and talk about the animals. And because there was infighting in all of the AV groups around, and even from the top down, and I would say, hey, we are here for the animals. Let's not forget they need us. And we all have our different approaches and our different opinions and our different ideologies. But let's focus on love for the animals today and not let our personalities block us from helping the animals that are suffering right now. And so those are some of the things I would share when there was infighting that I was around. Like, let's just remember why we're here. We're all passionate people. We all want to help. And we have different ideologies about how to do this. And let's just remember, let's not let our different ideologies create conflict within us that could break us down, you know. And there was such bad infighting at some places. I was convinced Animal Ag has billions of dollars. They could easily hire some guy to come in, pay him $100 an hour to cause fights. I mean, I'm a bit of a paranoid conspiracy person sometimes, but I completely believe that is a reality. Like they could hire this college kid who's coming in posing as a vegan and blowing up this group because that's what happened. I literally saw that happen, and I was like, "Who is this guy? Where's he from?" And like, tell me that Animal Ag's not paying him $100 an hour to come here and do this. And anyway, little side tangent there about my paranoid thinking at times, but so anyway, to answer the question, trying to just be an example of the Buddhist teachings and being an example of love and trying to insert that love into toxic situations is a powerful thing. And sometimes it's not recognized, other times it is, you know. So I think the last thing I'll say, there's a teaching, I can't remember where this is from, but the story goes that the Buddha was walking through the market, radiant, shining bright, and the pickpocket saw him, the thief, and all the thief could see was the Buddha's pockets. And what that means is that even the most radiant being on the planet, when someone is locked in their darkness, they can't see their radiance sometimes. And I have to remember that. Like, it doesn't matter how hard I try sometimes, people can't see anything but the bad in the world. And then they project that onto me. You know, the thief could only see the Buddha's pockets. He didn't see the Buddha's love, you know? So
Wow. Definitely. I love that. Leading with love and just being aware of our own radiance. That's beautiful. I know we're almost out of time, just a couple minutes left. Uh, I think a perfect question to end on is how can our network support us? How can our network help with DVA's efforts to encourage diet change in the United States?
I've talked a lot. Does anybody want to jump in with their Andrea or Katie or anyone? I mean, that's a great question. I feel like I might have kind of answered that already a little bit with some of my thoughts, but so who else wants to jump in?
Sure, I can jump in. So one area that we really need help with is getting connections into centers. So Forrest is obviously calling and emailing, and we're trying to get our foot in the door just to share the resources that we have. But having someone who actually attends a center would be extremely helpful. So if you have a retreat center in your area or a sangha who serves meals, like please, help us connect with them. Also, just sharing our content on social media would be extremely helpful. Something recently that we're working on is more content for social media about the mission, because a lot of people, they don't know that DVA exists, and that's something that we're really trying to change so that we can help save more animals. And so with the WhatsApp group, we are going to be posting more content that's shareable, so we can bring more people into the fold, and not only to help, Buddhists turn vegan, but also, vegans adopt some of these Buddhist practices. As an ex-angry vegan, I went vegan first and found Buddhism after, and it completely changed my advocacy, which is, in my personal opinion, helping to save more animals. So, join the WhatsApp group, share our content. If you know anyone at a center, please, send them our resources. We have a lot of free resources online. We can help create an entire menu for centers depending on their, traditional foods or cultural foods that balanced helps us create. So yeah, those are some ways I'd recommend that you can help.
That's great.
Cool. Thank you, Andrea. Um, yeah, I guess just to second that, speak to your community, your own sangha, join our sanghas, connect with other people who are like-minded. We got to remember that we're animals too, and we have to care for ourselves and stay connected. And I think that's really important. And send us an email if you have any interest in getting involved, any special skills, any ways you can think of if you'd like to volunteer or just be more active and show up to our special speaker series and sanghas. Just get in touch. We'd love to hear from you. And I think with that, we've made it through. Thank you so much, Forrest. It's just been so good to hear your full story and how you came to where we are now today. Just really incredible and inspiring. Thank you so much for
All right,
sharing
on.
everything
Thank
with
you.
us.
Thank you for saying that. That means a lot. I appreciate it. It's not easy to open up and be vulnerable and all of that kind of stuff sometimes. But I like, I, I, I'm grateful that I had the opportunity to share with you guys and let you get to know me a little bit better. And I hope to get to know each of you better too. And that we can all become uh, bright, shining examples of the Buddhist teachings. And through that example, I mean, I haven't had much luck with family, but I was a personal trainer for 14, well, I guess, let me think, 11 years of, maybe 12 years of my personal training. I was a vegan. I had outstanding success when I didn't talk about it too much at first. And I let my physical abilities and my knowledge, and I would have slow conversations with people. I actually had quite a few clients go vegan just because I was smart at that point and able to slowly talk about it. But I was able to, like what we were talking about, like shine a light, shine that light and have people, rather than trying to cram it down their throat, be a good example of a vegan first and then have their questions come versus being like, I'm vegan, which is so hard sometimes. I just saw Preacher
Mhm.
Lawson. You guys know Preacher Lawson? He's hilarious. He's a stand-up comedian who always talks about being vegan. And he's like, man, y'all are always mad at vegans for telling you we're vegan. He's like, what are you gonna be mad at people that tell you they have allergies? It's like, look up Preacher Lawson. He is awesome. He weaves in vegan activism into his stand-up comedy. So does Ricky Gervais. He's amazing doing all these talks about the environment and stuff right now. Like if you see his stand-up stuff, he's like showing some of the slides I have in my eco talk. So anyway, yeah, may all beings be free. Thank you guys for coming. May we all find a path to enlightenment that allows us to be the best examples of Buddha's love for all the animals. And, may we all learn and grow together and help the animals who are suffering. They need us and we need each other, because being alone as a vegan, as a Buddhist who's alone is hard, so we need to connect. Please come to our animal activism sangha. It feels really good to be around like-minded people, especially for any of you that are alone as a vegan. It's really hard being alone, so please come and join us. It's very powerful and very healing. So thank you all for your time today, and thank you for listening to me, and thanks for putting this together, Katie and Andrea. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Forrest. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I hope you have a really great rest of your weekend.
Thank you all. Thank you, Forrest. Take care, everyone. Good seeing you.
Awesome. See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.